Welcome back to Mean Streets, the podcast where we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir. I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth.
And we are your cinematic sleuths, and it's time to crack another case. And boy, do we have a darn diddly darn dog and doozly film for you. Matt, what case has been slapped? What case has slapped us in the face and fallen on our desk?
This was a tough case to crack, this one. Today's case is 1990's Dick Tracy.
Bum, bum, bum.
Starring Warren Beatty, Madonna, and Al Pacino. Written by Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr., based on the comic strip by Chester Gould, and directed by Warren Beatty himself. The IMDb logline is: the comic strip detective finds his life vastly complicated when breathless Mahoney makes advances towards him while he is trying to battle Big Boy Caprice's united mob.
I mean, that is technically what sort of happens in this film. That is...
Yeah. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting, that logline.
Yeah. It is conveying an idea of what this film was aiming to achieve, but when you watch it, I don't know. An execution?
We'll get into it, but a lot happens and nothing happens.
Yes.
You know.
I mean, let's just do it. Let's just go into initial thoughts. I mean, without spoilers just yet, but I mean, what were your initial thoughts? I was obviously way too young when this came out to have seen it in the cinema. I was like 4. That said, I remember it. I do remember it. And
I was 16.
It was 16. Okay, you're saying so I remember because there was posters everywhere. There was adverts everywhere. I think there was a McDonald's tie-in somewhere. So I remember seeing it, not knowing really what it was by any stretch, but seeing it, and then as I got older throughout the 90s, it's sort of being a thing that I was aware of, and that's about as far as it went for me.
Yeah, I remember it too. I remember it coming out too, and seeing trailers for it and seeing it on Film 90 with Barry Norman and shows like that, and even at the time thinking that looks bright and busy.
Yes.
But there was a big show of the makeup, which again we'll get onto, but there was a big show of all the prosthetics that were done. And my initial thought was watching it, because I must have seen this in the 90s. I must have seen this before, but I don't remember. So I was coming to it pretty fresh, and I just thought, wow, that makeup is good, but there we go.
There we go.
That's it. But I remember there being posters everywhere. I think you're right about McDonald's. And I remember it being sort of treated as if it was going to be like the follow-up to Batman, which had been out the year before. And look, comic book movies can make money, so anyone can do them. But I was never... I'd seen some of the 40s serials of Dick Tracy, but Dick Tracy wasn't ever really prominent in my psyche growing up. I don't know anything. I don't know much really about the background to it, to the character and to the comic strip.
I know nothing about it. I will just put my hand. I know nothing about it. I've seen this film, and that's it.
So and I like I said, I'd seen some of the black and white serials that with actor's name escapes me now, Ralph Bird or something I think it is, and they were just what serials. I mean, those serials you could interchange the hero, 10 times over, and they're all the same. And good fun, but nothing. I don't think I went to the pictures to see this. I think I'll have seen this on TV or something.
I think I do remember it being on a screen in front of me at some point in my life. Again, this was probably on television. Yes, it was. So I similarly to you, like I came at this really, really fresh because you know, I saw it at some point in the 90s when I was a kid, more likely on TV because, you know, if there's some nip slips in this. You could see
Yeah.
Madonna's I don't think this was one that was a rented from the library situation. I'm almost certain it was just on television. But the 90s were sort of this, yeah, there was kind of a boom. There was for sort of pulp fiction adaptations. You had this, you had I can't remember the purple guy's name, the
The
Phantom,
Phantom.
the Shadow, which came out after the Phantom. So the 90s, which is probably why this hung in was in sort of my radar, on my radar when I was a kid, because I remember when the Phantom came out. I remember when the Spirit came out. So this is all sort of in that vein. And I can imagine sort of cross marketing and people, you know, this getting pushed to the forefront because,
Well,
you know, we're going to get into it, but the film was financially quite successful. So it wasn't a disaster at the box office.
No.
You know, they made their money back.
It made its money back, but this is people have to remember there once was a time when superhero movies were a risk. And you know, Donna's Superman was a good like 10 years or whatever it was old when Burton did Batman. So there'd not been anything in between. Whereas now, of course, the 10 a penny. But they were still a bit of a gamble. But Batman had opened the gates a little bit because that had been such a runaway success and a surprise and shock success to almost everyone concerned, I would have thought. That then there was, like, as happens in Hollywood, there was a bit of floodgate opening. So you did get all those films that followed in the wake that tried to do for other comic book characters what Burton had done for Batman.
Yeah. And I mean, they were mining some of the lowest common denominator pulps.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
for this stuff. You know, I don't think the Phantom, he's not that cool in my opinion. Neither is the Spirit. Neither is Dick Tracy.
No, Dick Tracy. But we didn't have the effects to do Spider-Man properly, did we? We didn't have the effects to do.
But
you'd have had to just have a man painted green again, like Lou Ferrigno, to do the Hulk. You know, so
yeah, but that's all right. I don't mind some of that stuff. I think the Lou Ferrigno Hulks are actually hold up and are really fun. But
so do I.
There were other good comic book films. Case in point, 1990s, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle film is arguably, in my opinion, one of the best comic book adaptations of the genre, period. It's, you know, as the genre continues and more really good ones get made, that one to me is part of the bedrock of what you want your, you know, of the genre. You have your Superman, you have your Batman, then you have your Ninja Turtles. Those three really took, like, they go beyond genre expectations and make something more out of it cinematically. Whereas something like Dick Tracy doesn't, I don't even know what it doesn't achieve a lot in terms of genre, even genre expectations, I would say.
No, it doesn't. I agree with that. It doesn't. You know, it has some of the right moments, like, you know, machine gun fights and car chases and seedy nightclubs and things like that. But none of it is a cohesive whole. None of it really does anything.
No.
And it's not a very clever film, I don't think. You know, I was watching it thinking, you know, when you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, or you watch The Last Crusade, you watch any of the first three Indiana Jones films. I'm not sure about the others. You can sort of see where the serial episode would have ended. You know, so he runs away from the boulder, but you would have seen the boulder cover up the entrance and not see him get away. Yeah, and that's where the first episode would have ended, and then the next one, you know, and things like that. There's none of that in this. This is just confused, like, events all happening one after the other. And
my initial thought of it is, and that I wrote down, was a flaming disaster of a movie.
Well, I think, didn't I text you and say that there's no story, it's just a lot of events, and you replied saying, I've just written down, you know, this is a lot of things happening.
Yes. Which,
and that's the best way to sum this film up.
Yeah. I guess with that said, we can go behind the camera, because the behind the camera stuff is by far the most interesting aspect, I think, of Dick Tracy. So this came out in June 1990. It cost $46 million to make. The marketing, you sort of roughly double that. So it was around 90 million. Its box office return was 162.7 mil. That's a good return.
That's a good return.
You can kind of roughly estimate that this thing made around 70 million ish after everything was done. That's a pretty good return, I would say.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a lot. Heck of a lot of money. Now, as you mentioned, Warren Beatty was the director, and he was also the producer, and he was also the star. And therein lies a lot of the problems. But there were problems from the beginning. So it's good to note, worth noting that Beatty had an idea for a Dick Tracy film in the 70s, but that while it was pitched, it never went anywhere.
Yeah.
And then in the 80s, things sort of began to happen. Now, United Artists, the company who was, the big, always the ones behind the James Bond movies, distributing the James Bond movies, were interested in doing the same thing for Dick Tracy. And they brought on Tom
Mankiewicz.
So the dude who wrote Superman 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, the dude who tidied up Superman 1 and 2 and made it what it is.
Yes. Mario Puzo obviously wrote the script, but that was not good, which is shocking, because you would have thought he would have been the one doing a good job, but he did not.
Yeah.
Now that to me is interesting, because I'm like, oh, that could have been fun.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that, and it never happened.
Yeah, no.
When you look at what Mankiewicz was doing in the 80s, in terms of polishing scripts, he was doing some good work. I mean, a lot of the heart of Superman is Tom Mankiewicz. That's why Donald brought him in. Yeah.
And again, it's like when you're talking about this stuff, when we're talking about, this sort of the gritty, not gritty, but the sort of realism that Donner brought to Superman and all that kind of stuff. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I could see that fitting in really nicely with something like this, because surely you're not just going to make it a cheesy pulp, ripped right out of the comic. Like, it's like someone taking silly putty and just rubbing it on the comic strip and then peeling that off and saying, here's your film.
Exactly.
Surely you're not going to do that.
Surely not. Thank God that's not the film we got, eh?
Yes. No kidding. Now, Chester Gould, the creator, is the reason why this initial deal fell through. He was very demanding in terms of artistic input and financial control. And, look, you're the creator of the thing. I sort of get it. But often when Hollywood is taking your stuff and adapting it, you just got to let it go and hope for the best.
Well, there's a story about that demonstrates that point perfectly well, and it's just a little deviation from the source from Dick Tracy. Well, that's exactly what Colin Dexter said when the Inspector Morse novels were optioned for TV. And he said, when you're approached for TV, you pretty much say yes to everything. So that's why Lewis is a Geordie and not a Welshman, and things like that. That's why he's got a Jaguar and not a Lancia. Things like that, because he says in the end, people will watch this, and that then might make them go out and buy the books.
Definitely.
So I think there's some merit in saying that. So you've sort of got to accept that what Hollywood is going to produce ain't going to be like a perfect mirror reflection of what you created.
Yes. So the next phase in the evolution of Dick Tracy comes with Paramount. And this again, things are interesting. I'm like, okay, I would have been interested in this. So Steven Spielberg is becomes a director he's one of the ones sort of being tapped or considered to possibly direct this film. Universal is brought in to co-finance this sucker. But then it comes down to John Landis, who is more strongly considered to direct it, but also produce it. Now, for those who don't know, John Landis, director of The Blues Brothers, American Werewolf in London, Three Amigos, Coming to America. But at this point, he's got Werewolf in London and The Blues Brothers already out there. So he's. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of The Blues Brothers, but it has some cracking stuff in it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of The Blues Brothers, but I am of American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, well, I like that. I like The Three Amigos.
Yeah,
he's got some
I
good
think Landis was a good
film.
choice.
Yeah, I
think
could
Landis
have seen
was
it.
a good choice.
I could have seen it. And then there's the stars that they're thinking about getting attached to this. Clint Eastwood as Dick Tracy.
No,
hey, that's kind of cool.
That's good. Yeah. If Eastwood could stick his tongue in his cheek, I think that would be good.
Yeah,
he's much more. If he could be convinced to take the Mickey out of his Dirty Harry role, I think Eastwood would have been absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, I would have been cool with that, but that's not all. Harrison Ford, he's obviously coming off the back of Star Wars, Return of the Jedi is coming out in a couple of years, Blade Runner, Indiana Jones. He's working on Indiana Jones at the time, I suppose. But again, Harrison Ford could have been fun because he's a fun actor.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
That
he would have brought something to it. I think Harrison Ford. I think he would have brought a sort of wryness to it.
Yes. And it's given that he was just off of Blade Runner, maybe, or kind of that's happening around the same time. I kind of get why that probably didn't work out. But he also could have taken the piss out of Blade Runner and the voiceover stuff. Like you could have done tongue-in-cheek kind of stuff there. Also, other alternatives were Richard Gere. That could have been all right, maybe. Tom Selleck, Magnum PI. I think
Tom Selleck would have been good. Yeah. I would have preferred Tom Selleck to Richard Gere, if I'm brutally honest.
Maybe. And also Mel Gibson. Again, all three, every single actor from Eastwood to Gibson. I'm like, you know what? I can see that happening in some fashion. Selleck and Gibson might be my favorite choices because I think they would be able to be a better blend of the serious and the comedy.
Yeah,
I think film is meant to be serious or a comedy, which the film itself, I'm not sure knows what lane it wants to go in.
I don't think it knows. I would have liked to have seen Eastwood, but I wonder whether he'd be good enough at the comedy side. So I think on balance, I'd go for Selleck. I'd go for Tom Selleck, who can clearly do both. I mean, Magnum PI shows he can do both.
Yes.
One scene after another. If he can be funny in one and tragic in the next. Yes. And I think he would have brought much more to it than what we get, certainly. But you're right. All these are viable choices. All the directors are viable choices. I mean, you imagine what Spielberg and Ford would have done with Dick Tracy, and it's just, it's a film that you would actually want to see.
You would. Jesus. And of course, at this time, Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. are brought on to rewrite the script. So at this point in the production, scripts had been made. Universal weren't happy with them. Nobody was happy with them.
Nobody's happy. No.
So they were then brought in to take a crack at this, and they stay on the project for the duration now. And we'll come to the writing stuff in just a little bit because there's a lot more to come. Landis, of course, left the project. And it's a sad thing. He left the project because of the Twilight Zone movie incidents where 3 actors were killed on set. And so he was like, nope, I can't do this. I got to step away. Rightfully so. Understood. Another director was brought in, Walter Hill. Again, I'm not as exciting as the previous, but still interesting because he's got things like The Driver, 48 Hours, another 48
hours.
Streets on Fire. Something there could have been good. And I think
I think he wrote the screenplay for he wrote the screenplay for The Getaway as well, which is a great film with Steve McQueen. So he's got form for this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I think what could have been interesting with Hill was who he was partnered up with as a producer, and that's Joe Silver, who we have mentioned on this podcast in the past. He's produced things. Well, he produced some of Hill's films already, but also Lethal Weapon, Die Hard 1 and 2. He went on to do Predator 1 and 2, and he's done the Matrix franchise. So, as a producer, Joe Silver has a very strong filmography. He's someone who I'm like, hey, you might actually be a decent producer.
yeah. If such a thing exists.
If such a thing exists. So even with this pairing, I'm like, Hill, Silver. All right, that sounds interesting. And then Hill decides to approach Warren Beatty for the role. And I mean, is that just sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think I quite like what Hill wanted to do, because Hill wanted to make it realistic, didn't he? And like pretty violent. And
yes.
And I think that would be an interesting thing to do with what is obviously a cheesy pulp cartoon character. I think that would be
he wanted to do the Batman thing, isn't it? Whereas in everyone's mind, Batman before Burton was Adam West, and it was cheesy, and it was campy, and it was silly. And Burton's like, I'm not doing that. We're gonna go back to what's looking at the comics. Like, we're gonna make it gritty again, and that sparked new life in Batman.
Into Batman. Yeah,
I completely understand why he would have wanted to do that with Dick Tracy, because again, it's silly, it's campy, it's over the top. It's the appeal of that campiness is it's not going to stand the test of time.
It's not going to stand the test of time. And by this stage in the world evolution, it had its day, because Burton had wiped away the ad, not completely, obviously, but he'd said, no, there's no pows, thwacks and zaps or anything like that in this film. This is dirty and dark and grim. And for some people, it was too grim, Batman. For some people thought, this isn't what Batman is.
There's that really funny video of that kid who's being interviewed for Batman Returns, and he's like, I didn't like it. It was kind of scary, and the penguin was scary. And I'm like, I remember being a kid. I remember it being scary, but I also remember Catwoman being like, hot damn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I remember it being scary and thinking, this is fabulous. Because it was, Batman is a dark character. But, if given the choice, I suppose you either have to say, well, the only way to do a comic strip is to make it goofy and campy, which is what William Dozier did with Batman. Or you say, no, we treat it realistically. And what would it have actually been like? And of the two, the one with the most lasting power and the one with the most interest to me is the second.
Yes.
Put Dick Tracy in the time that he was set, like the sort of, what is it, post-prohibition, perhaps
30s, yeah.
And make him the man who's going to clean up the streets, because that's what he and Batman have got in common.
Mean Streets will return right after this. Who doesn't love a good boxing movie? Well, Steve Hunt presents the Boxing Movie Podcast. On each episode, Steve and his guests discuss a movie that has boxing as a theme. Do not be put off if you're not a fan of boxing, though. Of course, he covers the likes of Rocky and the sequels, but the depth of boxing-themed movies across cinema history is much greater than you might imagine. Boxing Movie Podcast has covered the early works of Hitchcock, explored the world of blaxploitation cinema and the golden age of film noir, with episodes covering The Setup, Champion, and Stanley Kubrick's Killer's Kiss. You might not have previously considered yourself a boxing movie fan, but after listening to a few episodes of the Boxing Movie Podcast, you may have to reconsider that view. Find the Boxing Movie Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you love Mean Streets, join us on Patreon and get exclusive perks, insider access, and a chance to shape the show.
Depending on the tier of your choice, get early episode access, your name in the credits, and have your questions read on air.
You can help us choose films for us to review, unlock exclusive commentaries and reviews, and join our members-only YouTube Live Q&As.
So slip on your trench coats, pull your fedoras down, and join us on Patreon today.
Yeah.
Make it violent, because it would be.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been fascinating to do, and I think it would have been much more compelling than what we actually get. So I sort of miss Walter. I've said it before. I miss Walter Hill's approach to it. I think it would have been really impressive.
It's Beatty's fault, because he was like, no, this has to be an homage to the 30s strip, blah, 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 blah. In addition to that, he wanted $5 million for the gig, and he wanted 15% of the box office, and Universal were like, no.
Yeah. See ya.
But I guess what's interesting though is when you think about the adaptations of sort of pulp fiction and comic books in general, and it's fascinating which ones work and which ones don't, and which ones. So for example, I'm not a big Zack Snyder fan, but I think one of his better films is The Watchmen, which is 80% shot for shot remake of the comic book. There's obviously stuff on the cutting room floor, but it is pretty faithful to all of the aspects of it. And that works for me. But then we've discussed things like Sin City, which is visually stunning to watch, but the narrative doesn't work. And we're talking about Batman. Batman 89 is fantastic, but by the time you get to Batman and Robin, it's gone back to cheesy camp and is losing people again.
Yeah, it's the I mean, Chris O'Donnell says the first one he did, so he means Batman Forever, felt like I was making a movie.
Yeah.
For Batman and Robin, it felt like I was making a toy commercial. And I 100% agree. 100% agree.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting quote. There's a quote from Timothy Dalton when he's interviewed about License to Kill. And he said, people said, this is awful. I can't take my 8-year-old son to see James Bond anymore. And he says, it was never meant for 8-year-old boys.
No.
And I think there's an element to that about these camp things. Some of these comic books they weren't meant for kids necessarily, and even some of the darker Batman stuff, I mean, there's this whole thing about Batman doesn't kill. Well, I'm afraid he did in the original comics.
Yes.
He carries a gun, for God's sake, and he shoots a scientist.
Yeah.
He drops a man off a cliff. So Batman does kill.
Well, it's interesting just thinking about the current pantheon of these comic movies and the ones that stand out. And it's like, well, what do they do with Ninja Turtles? Well, the comics are already kind of dark and gritty, so they stuck to that, and that's had a lasting power. The original one. What did X-Men do? X-Men went realistic and a little bit gritty. And that continues to be one of the best. Spider-Man did the same thing. Obviously, it has that bit of Sam Raimi spice to it that adds a little bit of silliness and kind of horror aspects to it. But go back all the way to Donner Superman. What did he do?
You stick,
gritty and realistic.
Yeah, you said it. Because you said it in a world that you can recognize. That's what you did. Yes. That is just about the world you live in. Because what you're asking people to believe is that there's somebody who can fly. So you've got to ground them in some way.
Yes.
And the same as if you're going to ask someone to believe that a man can crawl up a wall, or indeed that a man will put on a bat suit. I mean, that is crazy that someone would do that. So when you've got an outrageous central premise, as really all comic books have, superheroes certainly, you've got to think. You've got to ground your audience in something. That is a world they can recognize.
Yeah.
So if you don't do that, you're lost, I think. And Alan Moore certainly says this about The Watchmen. He says that the whole idea of The Watchmen was, if you think about superheroes in the real world, most of them would be ridiculous. What would you do if you saw Captain America walking down the road?
Yes.
You'd say, look at the state of this, wouldn't you? So you've got to, you in order to buy into the fantasy, you've got to have a basis in reality.
Yes.
So everything else around that person is recognizable, which is why the Donner Superman works.
Yes. And I think one of the other problems with this film with Dick Tracy is that you can again, I'm in no way saying that for a comic book adaptation to work, it has to be realistic, it has to be gritty, it has to be dark. I'm not saying that. But what it does need to do is it needs to have conviction, and it needs to understand the world that it's meant to that you're living in. And even though, like, for example, even though I think the film The Phantom is absolutely stupid, I buy into the world still.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bad film. It's a one Falcon film, that one, but I did buy into the world. And if you're going to be campy, if you're going to be over the top, if you're going to be silly, that it needs to kind of permeate every aspect, and that world needs to feel they just need to make that world believable, and that's what I think wasn't happening here with its, because it was just so uneven with its. Is it meant to be funny? Is it meant to be serious? It doesn't know, which just confuses the shit out of you as you're watching.
Confuses you, yeah, absolutely. And a film to underscore what you just said is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You know, that is asking you to believe that cartoons are real.
Yeah.
So what it does is it makes them real, and it makes you believe they're real, and it says the word you used is conviction, and I think that is absolutely right. It does it with conviction. It does it without acknowledging the fact that what it's actually asking you to believe is stupid. And so because it just takes it for granted almost, so do you. You know, whereas in this, they're sort of constantly they're constantly reminding you that this is a cartoon, and then that takes you out of it. Well, it did me. Yeah. And you start to think this is just like noise.
Yes.
And bright colors. There's no substance. This is style over substance. That's going to be my overriding point.
Yes.
And the style isn't that great. The style is only momentary.
Well, hang on, hold on. Don't go there. I wouldn't go that. We'll talk about that.
I'll explain why I say that.
All right.
When we get on.
So obviously, after Beatty's like, "Hey, I want 50% of the box office," and blah 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 blah, Universal were like, "Nope," and that's when everything falls apart once again. Hill leaves the project. Even Beatty leaves the project. And Universal tried to bring another director on, but they don't get stuff done in time, and the rights revert back to the original holder. And then Warren Beatty's like, "Hey, all right, I will option this film for $3 million." He keeps cash in Epps for whatever reason, and Disney come on board to pick this thing up. And now Warren Beatty is attached as the star, not the director just yet. Another director was in the running, and that is Martin Scorsese.
Of all the directors, if you ask somebody who do you think who was in the running to direct that film, I bet you nobody says Martin Scorsese.
Yes. No. Anyway, that didn't work out, and I think that's probably for the better.
For the best.
In general. But that did mean that Warren Beatty stepped in and directed it. So he's quoted as saying, "It never occurred to me to direct the movie." Maybe you shouldn't. But finally, like most of the movies I directed, when the time comes to do it, I just do it because it's easier than going through what I'd have to go through to get somebody else to do it.
I wish you'd not been so lazy.
Yes. And there's a part I don't know what I make of Warren Beatty as a director. I don't know what I make of him as the star of this film. I feel like he's wrong for both parts.
So do I. I don't think he's not the actor I would think of if I was casting Dick Tracy. He's much more, to me, I might be doing him a disservice. He's very good in Bonnie and Clyde. But after that, and he's very good in a film called The Parallax View, which is a 1970s conspiracy thriller. But I've always associated him with like sort of light romantic comedies and, sort of sexy leading man. And not really much else. And he's not what I think of. He's not what I think Dick Tracy should look like. If you look at the comic strip, he's nothing. He's nothing like the Dick Tracy that is in the comics. Visually. I mean. But I don't think he's got the depth. I don't think he's got the gruffness or the toughness. He doesn't convey toughness to me.
I see. Here's my problem with it is it's like because we're in the comic book territory, we take Heath Ledger's Joker. When Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker, I was like, oh my god, he's the pretty boy in all these movies. He can't be the Joker, possibly. Come on. And then in the hands of Nolan and whatnot, it ends up being terrific. And this is where I'm like, maybe Warren could have been better if a stronger director was there to shepherd this thing.
Well, possibly. He still doesn't look the part to me. I mean, they did
Dick
try.
Tracy look like he's
Well, Dick Tracy's got he's famously got a big square jaw and should be like, handsome and tough. Well, he's handsome, but he's not tough. Maybe it's my reading of Dick Tracy. I don't know, but I just think, there are other actors I can think of, some of which we've named. I think Clint Eastwood is much more what I think Dick Tracy is. Much more what I think Dick Tracy is.
Mm. Possibly, but it's almost like I don't necessarily mind the visual of Warren Beatty, but his performance doesn't convey what I feel this character is trying to convey. It's weird, but
this character. I'll tell you what Dick Tracy is to me. Dick Tracy is to me a parody or a comic book exaggeration of Dave Banyan in the Big Heat. He's the one. Sure. He's the honest guy that is going to clean up the city at all costs. I don't buy Warren Beatty doing that. Having the guts to do that. I buy.
Well, is that
Glenn
because
Ford would have been a great Dick Tracy.
Doesn't sell that? Is that because the film doesn't sell that versus?
Well, very possibly. And
I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah, very possibly.
It's.
Perhaps what I'm saying is. Yeah, perhaps what I'm saying is, it's not that I don't think he could do it. It's just that he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
He doesn't convey Dick Tracy to me. Not that he could never do.
Yes,
but
which means he's probably the wrong choice for the director's chair.
Yeah, probably. He's not what I first think of when I think Dick Tracy. But then Michael Keaton isn't what I first think of when I think Bruce Wayne either.
Well, exactly.
So I'm not sort of against surprise casting. When it comes off, it's very good. But it don't come off here.
The other thing that was, one of his ideas for this film, that he was going to limit the color palette to your basic primary colors, your red, green, blue, and yellow, in order to basically imitate the comic strip. And again, this is where I'm like, again, it's all about conviction. Like I think of something like Into the Spider-Verse. Or the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, Mutant Mayhem, that leans heavily, and they're both animated, and they lean heavily into comic book art, and they look great. I am particularly a massive fan of Mutant Mayhem. I think it's a new, fantastic, fresh art design for these characters that gave it some life. So, but when you're doing this stuff in real life, making a live action adaptation of something, you do have to be careful, because I think about films like The Mask. It's not the best film, but I like it. Jim Carrey's fantastic in it, but Jim Carrey is the only one who is basically dressed like Dick Tracy in that big yellow suit and hat with the big green mask, and he's doing cartoonish, over the top things while the world around him remains grounded and serious. He is just this abnormality. But it's a world I buy into, and he looks outlandish, but it works because it's sort of one character. And I got to be honest, when I was watching this film and you see these scenes of all of these reporters asking questions, and one's wearing blue, one's wearing orange, one's wearing, whatever, red, it's like, yeah, I can see this in a comic strip, but I didn't feel that the way the story was trying to be conveyed, that it matched up, in the way that, say, that as much as I think Sin City is a messy narrative, the film, its visual style and its narrative style were married together well. And this is the exact opposite of that. And that is the style and the narrative are not walking hand in hand. They are being, they're at odds with each other, which creates an uncomfortable watch.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and it is uncomfortable. It doesn't work, and all it does is remind you that this is a comic book, and
Yes.
it doesn't do that with. I mean, it does it with a bit of flair, I suppose, but it's a bit too in your face for me. I think that's one of my problems with this film. It's all a bit too brash and bright,
Yes.
Whereas even in the Adam West Batman series, keep talking about Batman, but even in the Adam West Batman series, it's only them and the villain that are dressed in stupid stuff for most of the time. The rest of it is, and Batman's costume in that is comic book accurate. I mean, that's what what it looks like in the comics of the time.
Yeah.
Instead of all this armor and stuff. But they stand out, whereas in this, nothing stands out because everything stands out, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and it's just a bit too much. So, and I start to think, well, who wears stuff like this?
Comic book characters.
The comic book characters, yeah, comic book characters. Why is this man dressed in red? I think they should have just toned it all down a little bit, to be quite honest, and just muted a bit of the stuff and a
lot of the background characters. They're the ones who need. You can have your core cast, your heroes have that kind of pop and that flair, and some of your villains.
Yeah, but and the villains.
When every single person is OTT, you're like, oh God, who? Because you also struggle to work out who is who and who's important and who's not important. And
dreadfully,
dreadfully. I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I mean, Al Pacino's performance is a fantastic performance, but where does it fit?
Yeah.
He's acting as if he's in a Saturday Night Live sketch in a film that everyone else is acting as if they're trying to do a quasi serious thriller.
Yeah, well, I think I sort of call this the Jack Nicholson syndrome, because when he was the Joker, he sort of overacts as the Joker, but he's doing it in a character that can stand it and can take it, and it's a perfect balance to Keaton's famously unable to move his neck. So Batman is solid and motionless, and the Joker is all over the place.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean it works in any comic book film at all. And I think Tommy Lee Jones does it in Batman Forever, where there's none of the pathos of Two-Face. He's just like an over-the-top pantomime villain. And Pacino does it in this. He's all over. It's cranked up to the max. So there's no light or shade in it at all. It's just a bravura performance, and it is a good one. It is good, but it's sort of too much. Again, too much.
Yeah. Everything is cranked to 11. Everyone else is dial it back.
Yeah, just pull it back a bit, Al. Come on, Jesus.
So, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, and there's no sense of. Apart from the fact that he's tying people to gears, or he's a gangster, I don't get any sense of threat or danger from him because he's too cartoonish.
Yeah.
That was my other issue with this. These are laughable villains.
Yeah, we'll cover the we'll get there just quickly. Then we'll cover the characters because they're all pretty thin. Disney were very, very, very uncertain about Warren Beatty as the director. He's famous for control issues.
Yeah, very famous.
He's also famous for delays and going over budget and not, compromising or collaborating as well as he could. And Disney were like, hey, you have to keep it to this budget. They wanted him to keep it to 25 million.
25 million, yeah.
And he went well over that. I mean, the thing, like I said, ended up costing $46.5 million. He got $7 million for the role, but he also got his 15%, of the gross, which, fair enough. Disney can do that, I guess.
I suppose.
But Disney were going to release this under their classic kiddie brand. But as this thing went on, they were like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't release this like this. So they put it under Touchstone, which is their, that was their general kind of all things production house. If they wanted to do an adult film, it would go out under Touchstone. If they want to do Disney animated, it goes under like that.
Yeah.
And I guess the rest is history. But there's just a few more things on casting. So Al Pacino was who Warren Beatty wanted for Big Boy, though Robert De Niro was in the running as well. For Breathless Mahoney, Michelle Pfeiffer, Kathleen Turner, and Kim Basinger were considered, but too expensive. Sharon Stone auditioned for the role and was turned down. Madonna was very keen on this role.
I would just like to say that I would have preferred any of those to Madonna.
Yes. Well, the first three were too expensive, and then Sharon Stone was turned down for some reason. But I don't know what it was. But Madonna was going after this, and she famously said she would work for scale, which, for those who don't know, means that she paid the lowest amount possible, for the within reason for the role. I think just to be in the film,
just to be in it. I think there's two reasons for that. She probably saw it as another Batman that might catapult her into proper film roles, because she'd been trying for a long time to get into cinema. But I'm not sure she wasn't going out with Beatty at this point, or was certainly having an affair with him.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. That's interesting.
I am fairly certain they were in a relationship at this point.
Okay, well, that might be why. Because Sean Young, the lovely and beautiful Sean Young, who plays Rachel in Blade Runner, was she was offered the role of Tess Trueheart, which is Beatty's. It was Dick Tracy's love interest, bland as fuck love interest. Which eventually went to Glenne Headly. But apparently, as the rumor mill goes, she didn't take too well to Beatty's sexual advances, apparently, and left the role or was kicked out. And Beatty said that, and there's a quote from him, he says, "I made a mistake in casting Sean Young in the part, and I feel very badly about it." And it's like, what, do you feel badly because you came on to her and she was like, bugger off?
Get off me.
And then she got dumped from the role. Which it's like, when you hear stuff like that, it just sort of colors the whole production a little bit. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Because also when you think of, there's that scene when after Big Boy has started to take over the town, and he is making Breathless perform a new song with all these different girls, and you have this like chorus of very beautiful women with Madonna in the front, and it's just this like smorgasbord of gorgeous women, and you have this fat, greasy, nasty Alfonso Big Boy running in and around the women and like grabbing them and touching them, and it feels sleazy. But in a way that went beyond the film and the character being sleazy, and just making me feel like this was a sleazy production.
Yeah, I got that impression as well. And I'm not surprised, to be quite honest. I'm not surprised, because, I mean, Beatty's love life is, all you got to do is Google him. Beatty's love life is famous. He was one of those who would have affairs with his leading ladies, no matter what, sort of, if he could get away with it. I know what you mean about this overall stench of sleaze. I sort of, you do get that impression from this film, and
yes,
and the other impression I get, which sort of adds to it, is that this cast is just all the lads together in it. It's all the old mates together, and I can't find anything to say that it was unpleasant. but certainly Sean Young did make a point.
Yes. Yeah.
But there is that sort of blokishness about this production.
Yes. Yes.
You know, people doing roles for favors, and people doing it for because it's you, Warren. You know, I wouldn't do it normally because it's you. There's a lot of that arising from the casting of this film.
Yes.
You know, which
yes.
is always a bit unpleasant to me.
Yes. Now, famously, Max Allan Collins, who at the time was writing the Dick Tracy comic strip, he read the drafts for the scripts that Cash and Epps were doing and hated them. And I love it. He said it was terrible. The only positive thing about it was a 30s setting and lots of great villains, but the story was paper thin and it was uncomfortably campy.
Yeah.
And I think nail on head.
And when I read that quote as well, and it reminded me of the Donna quote when he saw the Puzo script and saw Superman meeting Kojak and all that business, and he said,
"Yeah,
it was like the Batman TV show. And you have to get rid of all that camp." It reminded me of that because this is too campy.
It's over the top, way too much.
It's like a pantomime, and it's too much. It's too much. And so I agree with him. And as for the story being thin, as understatements go, that's a cracker.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the story then. Let's dive into that. Like,
well, this won't
what is
take
the
long.
Story?
I don't know. The story seems to me to be exactly what the logline is. That's the story. Big Boy wants to bring all the gangsters together and run the city, and Tracy wants to stop him. That's the story.
Yeah.
How that story is told is chaos. There's no jeopardy. No. Well, there's one. No. I was going to say there's one scene of jeopardy, but there's not.
No. There's no jeopardy anywhere. There's no this, and this is where everything becomes a problem with watching this thing, is not just the sort of visual confusion and the tonal confusion of, is this meant to be funny or serious or not, but this, like, you're like, well, who is who? And like, I don't really understand who Dick Tracy is in the grand scheme of this city. He's just constantly being called on to do stuff, and he gets the call when he's at the opera, and he rushes away to a crime scene in the middle of the day, and he then rushes back to the opera, and the opera's still going on, but it's the middle of the night, and it's like, is that meant to be funny?
What? Yeah,
And
I don't know. Yeah.
what did he do when he came to that crime scene other than just walk around and then rush out? Again, it's like you're watching this stuff and it's like, wait, this feels like a Saturday Night Live sketch, but you're kind of asking me to take this seriously, but it's not serious, but your characters aren't making light of this ridiculousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know what you mean about that scene at the opera, and I think all you meant to take away from that, all I was thinking about watching that was, isn't Beatty proud that he's managed to capture a comic book panel because it's framed in perfect profile, you know, with the opera in the distance as the centerpiece, and they're sitting in very unnatural positions.
Yes.
And too close to each other because it's a comic book panel. So I didn't really know what had been said in that scene because that's all I was thinking.
Yes.
But it starts off with a group of like, odd people playing poker, I assume, and they all get killed. And I thought to myself, who are these? Who's this?
Yeah.
And I think the problem, and when you just say, I don't know who Dick Tracy is, that this film presupposes that you know who all these people are, and there's a lot of them.
Yep.
And I don't know any of them.
Nope.
And if you're going to do essentially the first film in what I suspect they thought was going to be a series, you've got to cater for people that don't know this comic book. So it'd be like Burton having the entire Rogues Gallery on screen, and people saying, "Well, I know the Joker."
Yeah.
But who are the others?
Yes.
You can't take people for granted like that. You can't take your audience for granted like that.
No.
So and none of them are sort of fleshed out at all. So this poker game is just a total massacre.
Yes, but also
of people I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But also with Dick Tracy, you know, he's pretending to be all morally upright and on the side of virtue and stuff. But you know, there's that scene where two scenes that come to mind. One is when he, you know, arrests Big Boy and then sees Madonna go into her dressing room, and he goes in there and she's suddenly wearing see-through lingerie, and like you can literally see everything, and you're like, wait, is this meant to be for kids? Because like, I mean, my God, okay, interesting. But it's almost like he goes in there just to leer at her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and then another scene a bit later on, because for some reason, because script says so, Madonna's character is hopelessly in love with Dick Tracy. She wants the dick. I don't know why. But she does. And at one point, she goes to his office in what is the most very uncomfortable, like, male fantasy, borderline misogynistic stuff. She comes into the office wearing this black dress, because she always wears like the solid black. Her very, very low cut, and he's sat still as shit, so fucking still at his desk, and she's to his right, and his head is just slightly turned, not looking up at her, but slightly turned and staring directly at her tits the whole time she's talking.
The whole time, yeah.
Again, it's something that I would be laughing at in a Saturday Night Live sketch.
Yeah.
But in this scene, I don't know what this is meant to mean, because then it goes even farther, and where she's throwing herself at him, basically, she crawls on his desk,
on
her hands and knees, hikes her ass up in the air, and is just like, and then is turning looking at her, and I'm like, what in the National Geographic is going on right now?
Yeah, so I had all those feelings, thinking, what am I watching? You know, and how am I meant to be reacting to it? And going back to, so I think Disney were right. This isn't for kids. So I think they were right.
No way, shape, or form.
No. The problem is, it's not for adults either.
No.
It's too cartoony to be for adults. There's no substance to it. So who the hell is it for? It can't be for kids. And it isn't for adults. So, you know, is the dog enjoying it? Who's the audience? Who's the target audience?
But also, like, what are we meant to gain or take away from Dick Tracy as a character? He's in these scenes. He's staring at her tits. He's drooling over her. But he also has a woman that he supposedly loves and wants to be with the most. But eventually, he does make out with Breathless Mahoney, because of course he has to. It's like, wait a minute. If you are the righteous, morally upright guy, you do the Philip Marlowe thing. You don't give into it.
Exactly. And you can't set yourself up. Dick Tracy can't set himself up as the cleaner up of the streets and the moral high ground and then do that. He can't.
Yeah. No.
He can't do that. Unless he's going to accept that he's not as good as he thinks he is. But that would be a character arc.
And what is this film? What's a character arc?
God forbid we should have a character arc in Dick Tracy.
And then, again, you have to wonder, like, what happened? And you, again, with this film, it's famously known for Warren Beatty changing the script and rewriting the script along the way. So while we, are giving some shade towards Cash and Epps, and we know that Max Allan Collins hated their script anyway, how much worse did Warren Beatty make it?
Well, quite a lot.
you know, is a tonal confusion, because he's like, oh, for this scene, I want to do it this way now. Oh, we're going to rewrite it to be like, or, is that also adding to the problem of a script that just probably isn't very good?
The script isn't good. There's no story to it. There's no story to it.
No.
Now,
and go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, there's a very limited plot, if you like, to Burton's Batman. That's just the Joker wants to destroy the city.
Yes.
But what that has is the duality of them both, and that they created each other.
Yes.
And I know that the comic book people go nuts about the Joker killing the Waynes, but for that film, I think it works. I think it works. You know, they created each other. They are the reason that each other exists, and they are the reason that essentially that the city has gone to shit. You know,
yes,
these things happen. This hasn't got anything like that. You know,
no.
This hasn't
Who
got
is Big Boy to Dick Tracy?
Don't know. Yeah, it's just the gangster we have to bring down. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
and Big Boy just wants Dick Tracy dead because he's
the
bad
he's
guy.
a copper. Yes. Yeah, well, so what?
Like,
it's just you know. Whereas, and of course he's got to fall for Breathless. So fucking Breathless. Of course he's got to fall for Breathless because she's the femme fatale. But then you can't have Tracy with Tess Trueheart. You know, I mean, you think about Adam West. Let's think about Adam West's Batman for a minute. He falls for the villainous women, but he hasn't got a girlfriend that he's cheating on in doing so. He is always the one that is sapped. You know, he's the one that is made a fool of, or he's the one that has to say, "I can't do it. It would, you know, it would have destroyed my career as a crime fighter," or whatever nonsense it is he says.
Yeah.
So if Tracy's got to fall for Breathless because that's the trope, he can't have Tess.
Yes. Yes.
And if
it's annoying because what little bits we get of Tess, I kind of like her. She arguably has, I think, the best exchange in the film, and that is when the kid takes the money off the diner table, and she doesn't say anything, doesn't make anything of it, and he says, "Are you two married?" And she says, "No." "Would you like a broken arm?" And then he puts the money back. And I'm like, oh my God, that is charming. And I like that. And that is the only scene I like.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Well, that is the only exchange between characters that I like.
Yeah, I agree. So there's nothing. There's no depth to any of this. That's the problem. Now, I've not read the comic book. Maybe it's like it in the comic book. I don't know. But you should be able to watch one of these films of its own accord, you know, and it's not always enough to say, well, that's what it's like in the comics. It's got to appeal to, it's got to satisfy a non-comic expert as well, and it can't possibly do because there's nothing to root for, because there's no jeopardy, there's no texture, there's no subtlety, and the relationships don't work.
No,
they don't work.
Well, they're so flat, they're so empty. There's nothing to them, which is why you just don't care.
I don't
care. It's a bit like, coincidentally, I mean, the last film we did, The Long Good Friday, had the same problem. It's like, well, all right, you know, we're 2 for 2 with with empty protagonists in the films. Now, okay, we've been trashing it for a while. I do have some likes, and I think they're worth diving into, and then we can cap off with some more of our dislikes.
Right, go on then. You tell me what you liked.
I think in general, I'm quite okay with the score. Danny Elfman, typical, coming off the back of Batman. A lot of the music feels like unused Batman ideas, but it's fun. Yeah,
I have no problem with the score. I enjoy the score. I enjoy Elfman anyway, but
yes,
my Oscar winning or not, Stephen Sondheim or not, I didn't want either of the songs.
No, the songs are dog shit.
Yeah,
but
I'm not a Madonna fan, so
I do like Madonna. And I you know, look, I don't know this thing. I don't know if she just can't act or what, or if it's this film, but I gotta be honest, I didn't hate her performance because what she was doing was pretty tame generally, unless she's, you know, hiking her ass up on the counter. Like everything else is pretty tame compared to all the loud ludicrousness of everything else around her, which is probably why I didn't find her annoying. I found everyone else around her annoying, but I found her fine.
Yeah, I don't think she can act. I think she's a terrible actress.
Yeah.
But it's not as evident in this because the role is crap as well. So,
Yes.
you know, there's no depth to any of it. So she doesn't really have to act this. She's just got to say the lines because that's all it gives her
She's
to
doing
do.
a Mark Wahlberg. She's doing a Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Now,
So
but back to
she's not
things
as
I
annoying
like.
in this as she is in other films. But
No, I mean,
I
I've
still
only
don't.
seen her in this, and I guess I've only seen her in that James Bond film. I don't know if I've ever seen her in another movie. To be honest.
Well, I would say go and watch Body of Evidence, but don't. It's like a Basic Instinct ripoff, and she's dreadful in that.
Yeah.
So
I'm okay.
But yeah,
So,
I could have lived without the songs, but otherwise,
yes.
the score I think is one of the best things about this film. Yeah.
Yes. Now, the other thing that I thought really made this film visually amazing, genuinely feel that it's amazing, is the matte paintings and the set design.
Yes.
I found myself in love with what I was looking at because it's again, I think to fix this clusterfuck of a film, this thing just should have been a comedy, a full-on comedy, which could have melded that over-the-top visual style with this world and with these characters and with this story. I think I could have bought that if everything was hyper realistic and in a hyper comedy. But the matte paintings, taking inspiration from the 30s comics, looking at Art Deco stuff, looking at German expressionism, you know, it's the same kind of set design and pictures that you will then go on to see in other Burton Batman universe films. You see it in Batman Forever, you see it in Batman and Robin, and though those films have their many weaknesses, they have a really cool visual style, and the way they sort of were able to blend the matte paintings with the real sets and with the miniatures really did create some incredible looking scenes. The train scene.
I was just going to say the train scene with the kid.
Yeah, he's running from Dick, and this miniature train, you know, comes barreling down the tracks, and you know this matte painting, this forced perspective stuff. I'm like, man, the cinematography on this motherfucker is fantastic. This is a great looking film. What a waste on characters or actors and story and everything else, because they don't deserve to be in a film that looks this visually good. Like the graveyard scene. The way the moon is perfectly pitched between the buildings and the graves and the gothicness of it, like, blows my mind. Like the other scene I gotta mention as well is, sorry, I keep going, but the other scene is like when Dick and Tess, whatever her name is they're walking up the street, and the camera pulls back, and it sweeps across the city, and you get this big cityscape. It looks amazing, and then off in the distance you see like that kind of classic you know, film set, you know, street corner set, and then you see a car move down it, and they zoom into that, and I'm just like, that is beautiful filmmaking, and it's all in camera. It's there's no digital effects going on in this movie, and I'm like, this film doesn't deserve this level of craftsmanship.
It doesn't. No, it does. It really.
There's
doesn't.
my rant over. But I love that stuff. I loved it,
and I agree with you. The sets are amazing, and we'll talk in a minute about the makeup. But I say the same thing about that. And it doesn't. The film doesn't deserve it. I think this is one of the last films to have no CGI at all.
Yeah, it is.
So when you consider that this is all handcrafted essentially, it's beautiful, and it looks so good. And I agree with what you said before about this should have been an out and out comedy. This should have been a spoof, because as a spoof it would have worked, I think.
Yeah,
you know, because you'd be laughing at it all the time instead of saying, why am I laughing now? But I don't think I'm meant to be.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And it would have been a good looking comedy as well. It would have been a really, really attractive. And like you say, I don't think Beatty is the greatest director in the world, by any means, but some of those shots really are good. And he must have some, unless his DP was saying, we could do this, Mr. Beatty. You know,
I'm gonna give all the credit to his DP.
There you go then.
I really am.
I think
he might
you
have had
can
some
safely
input,
do
but
so. I think you can safely do so because if it was Beatty, there'd be more of it, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
So
because those aren't in his other films.
Because they're not in his other films. No.
It's not an
But
Ishtar.
yeah, I agree. Ishtar, Jesus. God, that's a film and a half. That is.
Yeah.
That's a film and a half. But when I said before that, you know, it has almost no style, my point really was, I was thinking more of the makeup. Because my point about the makeup is that looks brilliant. Move on. You know, now I've seen it. That is amazing. When you see the comic, the comic book counterparts, it really is good. Really is good and accurate. But that isn't, you know, my point was, once I've seen it, I've seen it. Now these characters need to do something, and there isn't enough substance behind that style.
Yes,
for the style to really come off, you know.
Yes.
So there are all these great shots, but so I think it's a similar point, but you made it in a different way. There's all these great shots. There's all this great prosthetic work. There's all this in-camera effects, and it all looks ace. But that ain't enough.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree. I wholly agree that it is 100% style over substance. The style is incredible, and those artists who worked on all of that stuff, Harrison Ellenshaw and Michael Lloyd, are the ones who did the matte paintings. They did about 60 or some odd matte paintings. Fantastic.
I
just
miss matte paintings.
Incredible work.
I miss matte paintings. I miss, you know, you look at the Star Wars films, you look at when in Return of the Jedi, when Vader arrives and says the Emperor's coming, and you learn that all those stormtroopers are painted.
Yeah.
You think that is you know, and it looks so much more realistic than a CGI background. I'm sorry. It does. It just does. All of Krypton is a matte painting in Donner's Superman. It's just gorgeous stuff.
Star Trek is full of matte paintings. They're great. They're wonderful. I like them in movies, and you know, if they should still be used today because
they should still be used today. I think the leap of faith in the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, I think that's a matte painting. I'm fairly certain it is.
I think so. Yeah, no, I think so.
And that is, they're just beautiful. They're so talented. You know,
should be added that one of the makeup designers, two of them, there was John Caglione Jr. and Doug Drexler. Doug Drexler is someone who has worked on Star Trek. So there you go.
Well, there you go.
He is a fantastic prop designer and stuff. Doug is. I don't know much about John, but I know of Doug Drexler's work, and he's
the prosthetics are just brilliant. They're just fabulous.
Yeah, and they do look great.
They do look great, and they hold. I mean, my favorite is Flathead.
Yes,
who just looks great. You know, and Prune Face I thought looked good.
Prune Face,
and there are some. You know, it's fun trying to spot the actor beneath them. You know, I mean,
yes.
Dustin Hoffman as Mumbles, I think he's a good one. You know, and there is a shot that I think is a perfect reproduction, going back to Zack Snyder, a perfect reproduction of a panel from one of the comics where Mumbles is just sitting in his underpants and his shirt on a chair, and Tracy is interrogating him.
Yeah,
standing over him, and I think that's from a panel.
Yeah, probably.
And it worked.
I had a problem with that scene because I'm like, who's Mumbles?
Oh yeah, I've no idea.
Why do I care about this Mumbles guy? And like, what is he saying? Like, there's this fantastic scene in that film, Hot Fuzz, where it's set in an small English village, and there's these farmers, and Simon Pegg's character goes out to speak to one of the farmers about an incident, and one of the farmers is played by the janitor in the Harry Potter films. Can't remember his name. But he's you can't understand anything he's saying. But what's funny is there's another farmer who they're actually interviewing, and they're using, and he is mumbling beyond comprehension, and then the Harry Potter actor translates what the first guy says, and then Nick Frost's character translates what the other guy says, and so you get this like mumble hardcore, mumble softcore, then fully translated, and then when it's all done, you begin to then understand what all of them have said. You're like, oh, I can see how that works.
Yeah.
And it's like you needed something like that with mumbles here. You needed
do,
some
you
sort
do.
of like, and then a proper translation needed to come out somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you need to know what Mumbles has said from Tracy's responses.
Yes.
So it's a one-way conversation, really. But you know what's been said. But I had the impression, whilst I praise the prosthetics to the moon and back, I think they're brilliant. But they're really only Easter eggs to me. What we now call Easter eggs. Because I don't know who any of them are as characters. And the film doesn't tell me who any of them are as characters.
Yeah.
Because it presupposes I know who they are. And that's a mistake. So whilst I can say Flathead is my best, it is my favourite, I'm only saying that because I think he looks great. And when I Googled a picture of him from the comic strip, it was perfect. Yeah. But I don't know anything about it. I don't know what his character trait is. I don't know why he's got a flat top like that. And I don't know why Mumbles can't speak. And I only know he's Mumbles because it was Dustin Hoffman and it was in the cast. That's the only reason I know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I didn't pick up on anybody actually calling him by his name. So
Dick Tracy said, "Go get Mumbles."
Oh, does he? Well, there you go.
Yes, and then they bring Mumbles in. So, but no, I agree with that. I agree with that entirely. It's none of these people are actual characters. There are far too many. What you really needed was you needed to trim this right the F back. Like, again, we can use Batman as the example. You have Batman. You have what's his girlfriend's name? Vicky. And then you have Alfred. And then on the bad guy's side, you have the Joker.
Yeah.
And his henchman.
Bob.
And that's Bob. And that's it.
Yeah.
They have nameless henchmen who are just back there while the Joker is the main guy. So you really just needed to give Al Pacino, Big Boy's character, the biggest oomph, and he needed a side guy who could have been Flathead.
Exactly. And this is Beatty's fault again. Because it was Beatty who insisted that there was as many in there as possible.
Yes.
And that is a big mistake, because I agree. You needed Al Pacino as the central villain, Flathead as his second in command, and maybe one other. Yeah, maybe some nameless ones. That's all you needed. Yeah. Because if you look at some of the people who are in the mob, as for want of a better word, like some of the talent that is wasted. Dustin Hoffman is wasted.
Yes.
Mandy Patinkin is the piano player, 88 Keys.
Yes.
He's wasted. And
James Caan.
James Caan. Yeah, Jesus. Paul Sorvino and they make a joke of the concrete overcoat thing. You think, no, that was that's a really sick execution method. If I shouldn't be laughing at that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just and when they're all sitting, when the gangsters are all sitting around the table and they're all there, James Caan's there and Prune-Face is there. It's so obviously a hark back to when Nicholson takes over, the Joker takes over Grissom's gang and says, "I'm in charge now."
Yeah.
But they're all nameless gangsters as well. You don't know who any of them are, apart from the bloke he fries.
Yes.
Fratelli or whatever he's called. So they, you don't need all these people in. These people don't all have to have names for me to know what they are.
No.
And when you give them the names and you make them characters from the comic strip, and as I understand it, the comic strip was only ever one villain per story, quite rightly. All you're doing is fanboying. And that's the majority of your film, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're fanboying with a film where your audience doesn't know what to fanboy over because they don't know who any of
Yeah,
this.
and I don't know. I don't want
these
to.
people
I don't want to
are.
diss any Dick Tracy fans at all. But I suspect there aren't as many Dick Tracy fans as there are Batman fans, for example.
No,
So
well,
you're
I mean,
asking a
even
lot of an audience.
take for example, we'll use a Marvel example. Take Guardians of the Galaxy. I had
Mm,
no clue. I've been a Marvel fan all my life. I don't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were when that film was coming out. I thought, what? Who?
yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
Raccoon? A tree? What?
yeah,
Okay. And but that first Guardians of the Galaxy film is terrific because it allows the whole point of that film is in classic Marvel fashion has a very undercooked villain. Except for not Gamora, what's Nebula? Um, but it allows for your primary cast to be fleshed out.
yeah.
And when one of your characters can only say I am Groot, but you are connecting with and there is emotional resonance there, you
Yeah,
know, that's good storytelling.
that's good
That's good
storytelling. It's good
storytelling.
writing. It's good
Yeah.
writing.
And this just has you can have all this beautiful special effects, all of this matte painting, gorgeous matte painting, all of this prosthetic stuff that is incredible, but because it is wasted on a film with zero character and zero plot sense and zero sense of jeopardy and
Mm,
zero sense of heroics,
yeah, yeah.
it just leaves you empty and
Well, that's exactly
frustrated.
it. So when Dick Tracy at the climax, when Dick Tracy rescues Tess, is she called Tess? Tess Trueheart, yeah.
Trueheart, yes.
Um, who Al Capone, Al Pacino as Caprice has kidnapped for some reason, presumably just to get at Dick Tracy. I mean, there's no, it just comes out of no anyway.
Yeah.
When he rescues her, you are meant to be cheering, because he's the hero. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, what's he done for the last
Yeah.
hour and 40 minutes? He hasn't done anything. All he's done is go to various places and get caught and nearly blown up in a gas chamber or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It has to be saved by the kid. And you know what I think about kids in 90s films?
That kid was terrible. That kid was
Kid's
terrible.
awful.
Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Awful.
I mean, this film is like 2 hours and 40 minutes or 45 minutes. There is probably genuinely only 30 minutes worth of storytelling in this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so padded and bloated.
It is.
Pacing, structure,
everything about it
is just everything is misfiring except the visuals, and that's it makes for a very long and painful watch.
It does. I'm afraid it does. It has the total opposite effect that the film wants you to have, or wants to have. I think it wants you to have been excited, thrilled, and come out feeling good about yourself.
Yes.
I just wanted to, jump off a cliff after I'd watched this. It was just horrendous. And
now, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, and that is purely down to, well, you can only blame Beatty, can't you? The problem with being star, director, and producer is, where do you go?
Yes. And being that kind of that trinity is, you could normally be like, oh, well, maybe we can blame the producer, maybe we can blame the director. No, you are the three. You are the star, you are the producer, you are the director. You have a lot of power on this film, and you're
meddling in the script.
Yes.
So you're all over this film.
Now, interestingly enough, and I don't really look at this too often for these sorts of reviews when we do them, but I do find it interesting just looking at ratings. The Rotten Tomatoes critic rating is 63%, which is far too high. The audience rating is at a 53%, which is considered bad for the audience. But on that note, I mean, the critic response was weirdly positive for what this film delivered. What's his face? Ebert gave this 4 out of 4 stars, but mostly praised the design. A lot of the praise was coming from the design of the film, and not necessarily the story or the character and its depth. But my favorite review was one of criticism from the Washington Post, where it says Dick Tracy is Hollywood's annual celebration of everything that's wrong with Hollywood. And I think that is the perfect summation of this disaster of a film.
Well, I found a review from Rolling Stone, and this sums up what I was saying before. Well, it agrees with what I was saying before, and to some way sums up everything that I think about this film. And that is, well, first of all, they say Beatty's too old. I think that is a problem, but it says there are similarities with Batman. This is Peter Travers of the Rolling Stone, and he was talking about the similarities as we've done with Batman. And it says there's a loner hero, a grotesque villain, a blonde bombshell, a marketable pop soundtrack, and a no mercy merchandising campaign. But Batman possesses something else, a psychological depth that gives the audience a stake in the characters. Absolutely. Yeah. Tracy sticks to its eye-poppingly brilliant surface. Though the film is a visual knockout, it's emotionally impoverished. Yeah, I could not have said that better myself.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Every word of that, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, especially the no mercy marketing campaign is definitely right. And all these reviews seem to praise what we've just praised: the prosthetics and the production design, because there's nothing else to praise. That's the real tragedy.
No, and it's tough because it's like, it is tough because you don't want to. People worked very hard on this film. It's almost like, I don't know if this is taking it too far, but it's like you think about like Lord of the Rings and how beautiful those films are. But imagine putting all of that design power and that artistic power into creating Middle Earth, but your characters are so dull and boring and stupid, and the narrative just doesn't make any sense. And you're just like, what a shame for everyone who worked on this film, because god dang you, Warren Beatty. God dang you.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think even if I were a big Dick Tracy fan, I wouldn't like this film.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah.
Because I would be saying to myself, this isn't going to get people reading the Dick Tracy comic. No. Whereas if you're a big fan of something, you think, oh, well, maybe it'll get people reading the books, or maybe it'll get people reading the comic, or whatever. I think if I were a Dick Tracy fan,
spark a Dick Tracy renaissance.
No, it didn't. And I think if I were a Dick Tracy aficionado, I'd be embarrassed by this film. I'd feel about it the way I feel about the second Robert Downey Jr. film, I think. Sherlock Holmes film, that is.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be. I can imagine myself saying, well, if you want to get into Dick Tracy, don't watch the Warren Beatty film. Watch some of the 1940s serials instead. They're better,
Yeah.
And that's a sad thing to say for what was a Hollywood blockbuster.
Yes, that made a bunch of money. I mean, there must have just been nothing on in the summer of 1990. Maybe there was nothing on
in the summer of 1990.
June must have been a dry month for people.
Must have been a dry month, yeah. Unless people thought they were going to get another, like we said earlier, we're going to get another Burton Batman, that did something with the character that made him relevant to 1990, and they sure as shit didn't do that.
No, they didn't. This is a misfire. So, on that note, should we rate this guy?
Yeah, God.
Well, as our returning listeners know, we rate all of our films out of 5 Falcons, 1 being worst, 5 being the best. Dick Tracy 1990. I'm just gonna go first. It's
no Falcons.
Well, I'm gonna give it 2 stars, and that is being generous, very generous. But these stars are literally for the production and the music. That is it.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah.
I'm giving it 2 Falcons. I was going to say it's for the production design and the prosthetics, but if we lump those together, then I'll give a Falcon for, if we lump the prosthetics as being part of production design, I'll give a Falcon for the music as well.
Yeah, and
there's no way I'm giving it higher than that.
No, and a small part of that also goes to Glenne Headly and that "Do you want a broken arm" line.
Yeah. Well, there are bits where she appears to be in a totally different film to everybody else.
She does.
Wasted opportunity. I think this film is a wasted opportunity because I think all the ones we talked about that didn't get made, I think you could have done something with Dick Tracy at the time that would have had the effect that I think this film wanted to have.
Yeah,
but not with this direction and not with these performances necessarily, and not with this script, unfortunately.
No, but
so it's 2 from me as well.
Yeah. Any last words?
No.
Final thoughts?
No, I don't recommend people buy it if they haven't seen it.
I rented this off of Amazon. Sometimes I bite the bullet and I just buy the digital copy. Something told me in my brain, it was just like my gut's like,
don't buy this.
Rent this one. This one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I will never watch it again.
I'll never watch it again. No, I'll never watch it again. And if there are any Dick Tracy fans out there, I'm sorry that this film.
Well, I would love to know what you actually think of this film. Genuinely, Dick Tracy fans, like if you're on YouTube, comment whatever. Comment
let us know.
On Apple or Spotify on the episodes. Like genuinely, I really want to know what Dick Tracy fans think of this because I'm not a Dick Tracy fan. We came at this film as like it is a piece of Pulp Fiction. It is heavily inspired by the pulp noir, hard boiled stuff of the time. So it's like we came at it from that place, not having invested much in this character, but I would genuinely love to know what people think of this movie. Does it capture something for them or does it not?
Yeah. Does it capture something of the comic book? Other than, I would caveat with it, other than the things we've mentioned, it does, i.e., the prosthetics and the set design and the matte painting. We know it looks like it, but story-wise and character-wise, does it capture anything of it? Because I'm struggling.
Yeah, as was I. Well, I think we have thoroughly investigated Dick Tracy, 1990. I think we can close the file, put it in the drawer, shut it, and lock it away. But we will obviously be back next week with another case. So in the meantime, if you can, make sure to like and subscribe and leave reviews on Spotify and Apple and all those places. That goes a long way. You can also find us on Facebook and join our Facebook page. But until next week, remember to take care walking down those mean streets.